Hello! Behind the camera, I'm Brian Bocard, Senior Gardener at the Kauffman Memorial Garden in Kansas City, Missouri. Today, I'll be talking with Arri. She's our seasonal gardener, and she's also designed this year's canal tulip display. I really wanted to do an interview with Arri because she brings such a personality, which I do not have. So, Arri, how long have you been at the Kauffman Garden?
I have been working for Dwayne. This is my 6th year. 2.5 years before that, I was a volunteer here.
Great.
So 8.5 years, and I've seen 8.5 put in tulip displays here.
So you've seen it all.
I have seen everything here, and more than I even want to see.
Is this your first time designing the tulip display in the canal?
It is my first time. As most designs go here, we always, before we're ready to plant, we have to adapt. Maybe our plants had a failure, something didn't come in, and this is just like a typical planting that we do here. We have to adapt, make it work.
Now, is there anything you'd like to point out in person here before we record the rest of the audio for this video?
I'd like to point out they're awful early. I was hoping that they would all reach their peak 3 weeks from now, not today. Today's supposed to be in the 80s, so I think this will be the peak day for our tulips here.
Yeah, well, let's see, what day is it? April 6th, 7th, 8th? I don't even know what day it is anymore.
Early. And we'll be taking these out pretty soon. Once they're done, we dig all these up, put them at the curb, and it's going to be a little early to put our summer annuals in, so with this display, it may have to be bare dirt for a while.
All right, thank you. For the rest of this interview, we're recording back in the secret garden. I wanted to give some shots of the tulips while we go back and forth with our questions. Where do you look for garden inspiration, specifically with this display and in general?
I usually look for inspiration in nature. I look for inspiration in architecture, fashion. I go to a lot of symposiums, I read magazines, I look at books, I look at pictures. My inspiration just comes from nature. Last year I went to the Chelsea show, and the best inspiration, we went to Kew Gardens, and for me it was fabulous. They had English daisies in the grass, things I've never seen before, and everything made sense to me. Chelsea show's always a little bit over the top, and it's hard to pull like, ooh, I'd like to do that. But Kew was simple but very effective, and I get really buzzed about that.
Great. Yeah, so it's interesting how you brought up the fashion and architecture, because it's, one form of art informing another form of art.
Correct.
In your opinion, what are some elements of good design?
Design, in a nutshell, is contrast. Contrast in height, contrast in color, contrast in texture of the leaves or maybe the flowers. It's about contrast. And if you keep that in the back of your mind, you may want to, if you're just working with 2 colors, you throw another color in there, it changes everything.
Tell me about your design process. Right now you're actually holding your design that you drew up for this tulip display. So tell me about that process.
Well, either it be a flower bed or a holiday display, my process, it has to make sense to me and how I feel when I walk in the space. That's kind of my process. I feel like I'm thoughtful. I think things through. This particular design is not planted the way it was drawn up, but we had some challenges before we were putting the whole tulip bed in. We had failed crops. I initially have violas under each of the tulips, and I wanted the color of the viola under the tulip, that if the tulip petals fell on the ground, that's the color of the viola. So I kind of think things through like that. How do I want to feel and see when I come into a space? So we had to go to plan B on this one, and thankfully it was drawn up on the design that we could just go straight tulips. I wanted to create movement, if possible, on a tulip display. I'm not sure I achieved that goal. I think I might have, with violas, an underplanting of color to give you lines of the tulips. And especially in the fall when we put it in, it was just with straight tulips, it was just dirt. So we had to kind of wait for them to come up to actually see the design. And if I would have been able to put the underplanting, I think I would have been happier with the overall design. I do feel, a lot of people like more is better, more is better. But then I look at the planted tulip display, I feel like the tulips need to breathe a little bit more, that maybe there's too many tulips in there. Okay. And I did want to have it a big bang. Mm-hmm. So
well, I think you succeeded at that.
Yeah, I think that was one successful moment on this display. I just wanted to have the tulips breathe. And I'm not feeling that, and I've always seen underplantings. This is the first time we didn't do that.
Right. So just to clarify for people who may not be familiar with what we normally do here at the Kauffman Garden, generally what we do is we plant a tulip bulb, and then a viola, and then a tulip bulb. So there's a little viola between each tulip bulb. And those violas generally overwinter as long as the rabbits don't get them too bad. And then when they grow back in the spring, they create a carpet of color underneath those tulips. It also, like you're saying, spaces them out a little bit more.
Correct.
Because it's not tulip bulb, tulip bulb, tulip bulb.
Right.
So it's a different look.
It is a definite different look. And we've never done strictly all tulips here. And I think we've all kind of learned something from this. And I think it's a great idea to try different things.
Yeah.
On the canal bed, everything is very linear. You've got the brick edge, it's a long rectangle. So my whole idea of creating a tulip design was, can I put movement in there? Can I soften those edges? And that's going to kind of be up to the individual that views these. Did I achieve that goal?
Have you been up on the ladder yet to see it?
I have not, but I'm thinking today is my day, because tomorrow they may not be here. I mean, it's going to be awful hot today, and tulips don't like 80 degrees. Violas, pansies, every plant doesn't really, spring plant doesn't like these hot temperatures.
No, they don't. So what do you like about this display? Because you already kind of talked about kind of the differences. Maybe you don't like so much how close they are together, but what's something that you like?
I like that it's super impactful. It's something we've never done. I think that's important for a garden everyone has a different point of view. And I've been with Dwayne long enough, and he trusts me. I see what he does. He's a very Victorian designer, and that means a lot of patterns and shapes and straight lines, and then when somebody fresh and new comes in, they've got their own point of view, and we all can learn from other people's styles. And so that's kind of, this has been a really learning experience for me. Like, it's not my original design, but do I like the direction that we had to take? I think it was successful. Mm-hmm. But I still wonder what my original design would have looked like. I'm not going to be able to ever find that out, except in my own mind.
Right. Well, yeah, and it's kind of a bummer that we're closed and no one can actually come and see the design in person.
Yeah, we're kind of like a zoo, and a lot of people have been peeking up over the walls and exclaiming, and I always do like that, having that little folly, the unexpected, and because we've never had this many tulips. I think we planted between 6,000 and 7,000 just tulip bulbs in that area.
Yeah, just in the canal.
Yeah, and it's an amazing amount of work, and you do like to share it with the public, but at this time we're not able, but you can peek over the walls.
If you could give one tip about planting bulbs or doing a bulb display, what would that be?
I think you just have fun with it. We treat our tulips as annuals. We dig them out every year. We're a display garden, so the first bloom on a tulip is generally your biggest, brightest. But this year I wanted to have a huge impact, so I chose all Darwin tulips, and they're really a nice tulip. They're usually one of the taller, bigger bloom tulips, and supposedly blooming all at the same time. But I think I am a homeowner. I've had no formal training. I've had 2 mentors in my gardening career that have been patient enough to answer my relentless questions. And one would be my boss, Dwayne Hoover, and my other one is Jim Shaw, brother-in-law, who lives in Fairfield, Iowa, and they both have totally different design concepts. And so I've been exposed to that, and I just have this, I want to learn. And, anybody can put tulips in the ground. And don't be shy. If you have a bed of vinca, throw in some tulips, and it can look very natural, and tulips are happy. And it's kind of, for me, even more than daffodils, because they always stay in the ground and usually are particular color, yellows and creams and whites, that tulips are exciting. It's kind of the beginning of spring. Yeah. So any homeowner, I'm a homeowner, and if I can do it, you can do it.
That's perfect. Well, on that note, we're going to end the interview here, Lori, but thank you so much for talking about your design this year.
And I appreciate you taking all these photos, because if people can't, if they're not somewhere for people to see, then, what's the point? You want to share the beauty with others.
Exactly.
So thank you to Brian.
All right. Thank you.